Arizona Senator Mark Kelly's name continues to be included in speculation regarding a possible spot on the Democratic Party ticket as Kamala Harris's vice presidential running mate. And for more on what it means for Arizona, should Kelly indeed be that choice, we welcome Ben Giles. He's the senior editor. Are you the senior editor or a senior? You're a senior. Okay, I don't want to ruffle any feathers over there. But it's good to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. What's the latest on this? What are we hearing?
Well, speculation is the key word because we're not hearing anything directly from Mark Kelly and his camp, although Kelly was caught at the Capitol earlier today talking about how whether it's his military service or his decision to run for U.S. Senate 2 or 4 years ago, Mark Kelly said, I've been called to serve and I've always enjoyed stepping up when that call comes. But I spoke with his political advisor earlier this week, and they will neither confirm nor deny that he's in the running. That has not stopped speculation, though.
And we've reported all week, it seems like that the list is kind of narrowing, and he's always there. Yeah,
he's got a pretty compelling backstory as I mentioned earlier, an Air Force fighter pilot, a veteran, an astronaut, for goodness sakes, that always campaigns well. He's also got a pretty compelling family backstory when it comes to his brush with gun violence, the shooting over a decade ago of former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, his wife. That, I think, plays into some of the reasons he's being vetted as a vice presidential nominee, because he's been so outspoken and because he has a personal tale to tell when it comes to gun violence.
So we got Navy combat pilot, astronaut, Gabby Giffords, but the concern might be that both he and Kamala Harris are from the Senate. You usually don't see that, do you?
No, but the other candidates are not from the Senate. A lot of the other candidates who are being speculated are governors, whether it's North Carolina's governor or Pennsylvania's governor. And Democrats historically have not picked governors as vice presidential running mates. I think since the 40s, they haven't picked a governor to step up to the plate in that way. So in that sense, Kelly's being a senator might be a boon for his chances.
Yeah, and the relative inexperience, that could play a part, I would imagine. Although, you look at J.D. Vance, you're not seeing a heck of a lot of experience there either.
Sure, and the criticism could cut both ways, as you mentioned just there. But what Kelly has shown is an ability to win tough campaigns in what is now a battleground state. He won that special election to finish John McCain's term in 2020, and then he won a full 6-year term in 2022. Both close races, but races where he proved himself up to the challenge on the campaign trail.
And you mentioned these elections, which we seem to have every 2 years for the United States Senate. Should he be chosen and should that ticket win, we got to go through all this stuff all over again, don't we?
Yeah, it starts back in 2016, actually, when John McCain won a new 6-year term in his race for U.S. Senate. Starting in 2016, every 2 years, there has been a race for U.S. Senate in Arizona. And if Mark Kelly is chosen as the VP nominee and the Harris-Kelly ticket wins in November, Kelly would have to resign before Inauguration Day. That's January 20th, 2025. It would then be up to Governor Katie Hobbs, a Democrat, to appoint a Democrat to replace him. But that would also trigger a special election in 2026, like the election Kelly won in 2020, to determine who serves the last 2 years of Kelly's term in the Senate. And then 2028, there'd be another election for another full 6 years. And in 2030, there'd be an election for whoever wins this 2024 race that we're having now.
Yes.
So we're talking about over a decade streak of U.S. Senate races in Arizona every 2 years. I'm not sure we've ever seen anything like that.
No kidding. Addition tables by the way of 6, so just keep rolling the 6s along. Again, if all of this happens and Governor Hobbs does choose someone to succeed and to take that, who are the names? It seems like Greg Stanton would be the one that I would think of first, but I would imagine there are quite a few folks waiting in line.
Well, Governor Katie Hobbs and her comms team aren't speculating about that at this point, but I think that one of the problem is there isn't necessarily seen as a deep bench for Democrats who are capable of stepping up and running statewide, though I have heard names like Stanton. I've also heard speculation about maybe appointing a Latina or Latino to that seat, or maybe a native to that seat, just because that would be a bit of a groundbreaking move for Hobbs to appoint a minority to serve.
But she would also have to find someone who would win that seat in another election, who would win the special election.
And that is the risk that Democrats might be taking if they appoint Kelly. Now, if Kelly is the VP, I should
Yes.
say. Hobbs would get to appoint his replacement, but this is a very competitive state when it comes to statewide races. There's no guarantee that whoever is appointed could get reelected in 2026. It'd be another opportunity for Republicans to take back a statewide seat in the state.
You mentioned Latino, Regina Romero, perhaps?
Perhaps.
Tucson, Ana Tovar, maybe? Someone like
I've heard all these names, but again, it's just speculation at this point.
Yeah. A last point about Mark Kelly, his politics. Well, Democrats at the convention, you're going to the convention, good luck, fella. You're going there. Are they going to be okay with a guy who is pretty tough on the border, who is not necessarily in line with union and the PRO Act and these sorts of things? What do you think? I mean, is he a favorite among Democrats?
I think that what Kelly brings to the table and kind of the type of character that he's tried to display since being elected to the U.S. Senate is someone who's not afraid to speak truth to power, specifically truth to his own party. So when it comes to things like the border, that could be seen as an asset because maybe it's a weakness for Harris, having been the border czar, taking a lot of criticism from Republicans for what they say is the Biden administration's failures at the border. They could point to Kelly as someone who has been an advocate for the border, been an advocate for things like fixing gaps in the border wall. That's the sort of message that might help in a state like Arizona, which could be a state that decides the presidential election in November.
Indeed. Ben Giles, KJZZ, good to have you here. Good to see you again.
Thank you.